morning, everybody.
Morning.
As far as this one, I'm told I'm going to be telling you some stuff about containers. I'll come right up with it. I'm going to be showing you some stuff, and my VM died like really 3 minutes ago. So I'm not going to be showing you as much as I hope, but we're going to try and get through this together. So, I'm Tom. I work with computers and things, and lately I've been looking at Windows 2016 containers, TP5, that's the latest version, and seeing what you can do with them and what's good about them. And well, let's move to the first one. Okay, so that one doesn't work. Please get back up. I have a mouse with me.
Running in the container.
So why am I presenting on containers? Well, I'm sorry guys, it's not right.
Short.
Mostly. Containers are really being used more everywhere, every day. Large parts in the web world, in Linux, more than, well, there are containers on Windows platforms, but not as ingrained in the operating system as it is in Linux right now. Everybody in IT, I think, should really know about them, because it's definitely causing a shift in IT and the way we're doing things. But Citrix, Microsoft, a lot of stuff we work with, containers, yeah, I've heard about that, this is a little thing, but there's not much interest in it yet, which is why I'm running Church of Containers this Sunday morning, trying to get people interested in there. Because it is going to change in 2016. Provided they keep the TP stuff in the actual release. So, what are containers? Best definition, Wikipedia. So these are traditional Linux containers. An operating system level virtualization method for running multiple isolated Linux systems, containers, on a control host using a single Linux kernel. Substitute Windows and you have Windows Server containers, in a nutshell. Server 2016 supports containers since TP3. Support was very sketchy there. Well, it worked partly. And TP5, there's a better chance it will work, but there's still a lot of work to be done on there. Microsoft has chosen to be compatible with Docker, so the whole Docker command line interface is in TP5. Not all commands actually work. You can type in all commands, it won't give you errors, but it often just won't do something. And everything that Docker does, the Docker command line interface can do, in time you should be able to do with PowerShell as well. But right now the PowerShell is limited compared to the power of Docker. And the containers you make with Docker, you cannot actually manage with PowerShell, and vice versa. So if you're going to mess around with this, say, okay, PowerShell, easy command, I'll make a container, and I'll see what Docker can do with it. It's not going to be there. Again, this will change by the time it's released. And I was saying, containers have been around for quite a while now. I think, well, Sasha presented in the other room, otherwise you could give me the exact date, but around 6 or 7 years ago, container technology was already incorporated into the Linux operating system. But there was no good way to manage them. So adoption was kind of slow. As with the release of Docker in 2013, or the adaptation of Docker, it has really, really increased. I actually started becoming interested in containers myself when I ran into my cousin in Berlin at an E2E a while back. And he was just amazed, why aren't you guys talking about containers? And frankly, what are containers? He programs web applications, everything he does is on containers now. Everything everybody he knows who programs in the web is on containers. It's been really, really huge. So we are kind of late. But a lot of these people are using it, the really big people. Groupon, eBay, Uber, and Gbank, Twitter. Citrix now has nice container support in Server, brilliant. And Google. This is from 2 years ago, I don't have recent numbers, but 2 years ago they were spinning up 2 billion containers every single week. And by now, it's probably a billion more every week. Creating them, stringing them up, bringing them down again and destroying them and creating new ones. Which brings me to my first demo, which does not use my virtual machine that died, so I should be able to show you this. Let's see if this actually overlays here.
So demo should run on containers too. So then you don't need to have
Yeah. Great. Second. Let's try this one instead. Finger crossed. Yeah, forgot to sign out with all stuff with our host crashing before I did this. So, I'll say. I'm actually seeing it, didn't I? Okay, let's just. Yes. Well, what you didn't see, I've just logged into Gmail with my beautiful containers of cheese account. This is my container. Every time you go to Gmail, inbox of Gmail, open Docs, all of the functions inside Google, it spins up its own container just for you. You have a little tiny web server running a container where your website is hosted. Completely yours, you can have your own container in a couple of seconds. And we have one. And for example, let's say, now I have two of my own containers. So if you want to get started with containers, it's as easy as that. I'm guessing 95% of you have actually already used containers. Not technically that impressive, but shows you how integrated it is everywhere. By the way, Google is using their own proprietary technology. There's Linux code in there, but with the stuff they're doing, it's all hyper optimized and really for their business case. Okay, cool. You're doing it. My laptop does not like this resolution. So, what are containers? Well, you could call it a bit AppV for servers, but don't mistake it for server AppV. That's still quite different, but the idea of abstracting layers and protecting programs from each other is in there. What it is not is AppV itself. Except, well, server AppV. I'm just curious, I had actually forgotten about server AppV until somebody mentioned it yesterday. Who here has used it? Been happy with it?
No.
Which is probably why I forgot about it anyway. I haven't heard of anybody using it. I remember the announcement a while back, 2 years ago, and adaptation has been great, as we can see, because that's only you. So it's not AppV. AppV is the user side. It's not a full virtual machine. You're running a smaller part of a machine sharing a kernel. It's not an attached volume. Again, attached volumes are not the virtualization type that containers use. And it's not actually the Docker will with these containers, though I would love to see one in the wild. What it is, I'm just going to read from here. It's a way to run servers in their own user space, their own isolation. It uses a lot fewer resources than full virtual machines. It shares the host OS kernel. Now this is very important. All these containers have their own little operating system going, but the kernel is shared. So if you have anything dangerous running inside a container, for example, you are a hosting provider, a web service, and you have different customers running containers with web servers on one host, you're sharing the kernel, so that is a bit dangerous. What you could do there is use Hyper-V containers. which provide an extra level of isolation to protect the kernel process from different users. What Hyper-V containers actually do is they spin up a tiny piece of code, a tiny piece of kernel, which is just enough to run the guest compute service, which actually runs the standard Windows Server container inside there. So if you have a Windows Server container, all you have to do with starting it up is specify -Hyper-V, and now you're running in a proper isolated space, using more resources, using more memory, but it's protected better. It uses images instead of installations. Now images are nothing new to us. What it does is use layering. So you have your first image, your second image, your third image. We'll get on to that in a minute. You're not going to do command line install. Well, you can do a command line install to make a container, but when you're using the container, most average users, like us in this case, will not be doing a full installation. All we'll be saying is get the container, start it up, I have a container. And this is a very nice thing. It ensures your environment is not like the environment that the developer intended and developed on. It is the exact same environment. The developer distributes a container which contains everything you need in the OS and the software to run this. You're not installing roles, you're not doing any tweaks. Of course, you will have to probably run a small configuration script to set it up for your particular environment. All the recommendation lists of dozens of pages, like tune this, look at that, this is what your server should comply with. Who cares? The developer wrote it on his laptop if he wants to, inside this container. He packages the container, you get the container, and you're done. And this allows for rapid, massive application deployment. And really, really massive. Yet you can take one container, spin it up thousands of times in a matter of minutes, depending on your hardware, of course. Microsoft is aiming for an IIS container, so an IIS server running full featured in its own kernel space, in its own user space, to start up in 1 second. And they're, from what I understand, they're pretty close there. They're just 1.09 last I heard. That's a full IIS server. That could be a storefront. You can roll back really fast. What it takes to roll back the container is to stop it, remove the container, create a new container from the image you already have, start it up again. It takes a few seconds. And you can recover really fast in case of software failure. And there was supposed to be a line of text there which disappeared. But it is, again, literally, the server goes down with if your actual container goes down, it is really fast. With automatic software, you can have that functionality back up in a few seconds. If it's something like a web server, of course, a full-blown SQL server is going to take a bit longer, but it's way, way faster than traditional servers to restart. Yeah, so I'm trying to throw out I know that the whole slide's missing now. So this. I think we're good so far. So how it works in steps, no fancy pictures, can draw. You start a container with the base OS image. Gunnar, would you like to be my volunteer? Yeah. So Gunnar was not actually in Vegas, but let's imagine Gunnar was with us at E2E in Vegas. Gunnar is my base image. Good guy. Deployed in Vegas. We've started up Gunnar. Gunnar is running his guest OS service. Thank you, Gunnar. In his own user mode space. We'll have the bubble here. Then I can make changes in the container. Gunnar, I give you the pink Vegas one. Happy monkey, good monkey. He's doing well here. Now I'm going to stop the container, which, well, let's not physically portray that one. Just freeze for a minute there. Somebody took a picture, then you made an image of the container with the big Vegas monkey in there as well. Now this is actually my new image. Pink Vegas monkey application is by itself a small container image. I can take this with me to Dublin, and in Dublin I have a completely different environment. Different beer, better beer, less crap, the Vegas. In Dublin I decide, okay, I have one big shared base OS image, which Microsoft provides to me. The core server image, the Nano server image, the Gunnar image. I do a wget, I get the image again, here in Dublin, completely different environment. Hello again, my base image. I would like to deploy this container. Create a container with this image. So Pigfig is monkey, like, he needs some support. He's got written in his memory now, I need Gunnar. If I actually had not done a wget on Gunnar, the system will automatically say, okay, there's a repository, the standard Microsoft repository, let's get Gunnar from there. And here we have again, in Dublin, exactly the same happy monkey. I didn't need to do anything with the monkey, I didn't do anything with the base image. The base image, nobody ever touches except Microsoft itself and some freaks out there. Monkey is deployed, took me 1 second, no custom configuration whatsoever. So I might have to change his route to get to the bars. That's it. All unnecessary requirements, anything in the background that is needed for this is already there because Gunnar's there and Monkey knows exactly what Gunnar's going to be like. Until, that's just of course, it does happen, the base image is updated. Which will happen once in a while, but it's not going to be like every 2 weeks you have a few fixes you really need. Thank you very much, sir, for your assistance. So, the pink monkey is what is different from the base image. Now when I want to get several copies of this application, I would first send Jim back to Vegas to get more monkeys, but basically I just say, okay, this is what I have. I have a pink monkey container, new container, pink monkey 1, new container, pink monkey 2, and I can go as big as I like with that. For every container created, I can make a new NAT mapping from the host containers running on to pink monkey 1, pink monkey 2, and yeah, really fast, very large amount of similar pink monkeys, except for the name and the IP address they live on. As it says here, rinse and repeat, install another layer, and create another image. I can give pink monkey a hat. Now when I want to deploy the container, hat container, I say use hat image will say, well, I need to be on pink monkey says I need Gunnar. And this way you can create a whole stack of layers on top of each other. For example, Microsoft has the base OS images. They've also already made available a number of images, Nginx, MySQL. They haven't actually done SQL Server so far, which is a bit odd, as they have MySQL, but it could be, but it's kind of tough to get going, and I do actually have one, but can't connect it over the network, so I'm not sure what's going on there. At some point you're going to say, look, I did need an SQL Server. I don't want to do this whole installation stuff. Get my container, bam, lightweight SQL Server, which can handle heavyweight tasks, by the way. It's a full-blown SQL Server. However, it's going to use less memory, less disk, less CPU than an SQL Server with its entire own OS. Because you don't need a lot of this stuff. So, yeah, why is this good? Software developers can distribute containers instead of installers. I recently had a gig where I had to write an installer for a small software product. It's a really small product. I know my installer will work in 2012 R2. If I had to build everything in there for every possible scenario, I'd still be there working right now, I wouldn't be here. Installers are hideously complicated to get just right. However, a developer is just taking around to, okay, I need this, I need that, I know exactly what I need. I'll bake this into a container. And that's what you're going to get. You're not going to have a very complicated if-then process. It is as the developer developed. So there are no uncertainties with dependencies. If you need roles, the roles are in there in the container already. Done. So yes, I'm saying the software runs exactly in the environment as it was intended by the developer. You will need to do some configuration. I mean, yeah, if I'm going to install a web server, it would be nice if I have a DNS pointing to this actual web server and get some content in there. But the IIS image is going to be the same flat file copy of your content for the IIS server and join that. And this is also, I think, an important one. When you call Microsoft Procedures with a support question, what hotfixes are you running? What service pack? what drivers have you installed, it all doesn't matter. As long as your core operating system on which containers are running is good, it all depends on the base image it is running on. And the very good thing about this is, because not only are you bypassing a lot of questions and doubts about the stability of the package in itself, everybody in the world should be using these same versions. So if you have a problem, you're not going to be the only one. There's lots of people who are going to be having the same problem because they all have the same set of parameters together. It takes away a lot of the guesswork. So you have a faster resolution, as everyone will be using exactly the same code. Oh, there's the sentence I thought I had earlier. You want to do a rollback, so somebody has released a new version of SQL Server Container. There's a problem in there. Yeah, it sucks, but you can stop it and restart it in a matter of seconds with the old image. You don't need to remove the old container. Actually, you can just say, okay, I'll start up an SQL Server, new image. Oh, doesn't work. Stop it. Start the old one again. It is really, really fast. So we were talking about this with Alex. And yes, right now, containers are mostly web deployments. It's great for that. Web deployment scales really, really well. But it's not just web deployments. At which point I was going to show you an SQL server spinning up really fast on my host that died a few minutes ago. You're going to have to take my word on that one, unfortunately, because I can't connect to the machine anymore and I don't know what's going on. 9 seconds to start an SQL server. 4-year-old laptop, quad-core, 16 gigs, running Windows 10, VMware Workstation, and on there a 4-gig machine with 2 virtual CPUs. So we're not talking state-of-the-art stuff here. 9 seconds, I have an SQL server up and running. And, well, once the networking side gets sorted out, I should be able to connect it as well, but the service is going. And yeah, that is, for me, really, really fast. Maybe if you guys work in huge environments with all the Atlanta stuff and everything, but I've never seen servers start up that well. And I've been amazed at how fast it's working, despite the fact that my machine is a bit older. So unfortunately, I cannot show you. But how does this help us? Because we are remote working guys, environment guys, infrastructure guys. Well, who here worked with 1.8, mainframe 1.8? Good time, the old card around. It was really fun. You just installed it. You disabled Flash because it wasn't going to work anyway. Connect the program neighborhood, point it to a server. Hey, we're done. We have an environment that's working. Now I can start tweaking and tuning for what the customer actually wants specifically for this environment. However, setup. Okay, so I have to have my separate delivery controllers, database, we might want to cluster that one, storefront, license server. These are all things we are configuring running unattended install scripts for that we should actually, this is not our business. Our business is not to create the stuff. So the database, yes, you might get it from your SQL admin, storefront, maybe there's a web admin guy that can help you out, but you are running a lot of installers and again, a lot of uncertainties. A lot of things you're not 100% sure it's exactly the way it was intended by the developer of the software. So what you can do, and what I'm hoping is going to happen, is that Citrix will say, in a year, maybe 2 years time, when 2016 is properly in production, hey guys, here's your storefront container. It contains just the flat files for storefront. It will automatically do a wget, get an IIS container from Microsoft, assuming you already have the base image, and otherwise it will even get the base image for you. That's it. You just change it with pointing to the right farm, some credentials in there, I guess, and you're done with your storefront. At least the basic configuration, yeah, if you want to customize stuff. But you can make your own container layer on top of that with your customizations if you want, and still use all the standard layers that are in there. If you screw it up, remove your little layer on there, the image on top, make another one. Test different versions next to each other, not a problem. You already have the storefront container image, you just put small versions on top, start up new containers, each with the tiny difference in the image, and you're testing all your different versions. Rollbacks, not a problem, very easy. This machine is actually working. So, let me just see quickly, I'll do this again. here we have. Yes, it is. So my initial demo, which failed, was actually what I couldn't do, was actually creating 10 new IIS server images, starting them up, changing the landing page so it would reflect the different images, and showing those how fast it worked. This took 90 seconds on my recent deal, 90 seconds in total. However, we also have this one here, and because all the panic I forgot to. Oh well, we'll do this a different way. Sorry guys. I'll show you the containers out from here actually. So here's one I did build earlier. I'm having a really good day here.
Container.
Sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Who stays for lunch?
What time is lunch?
Well, about 1:15. All right.
Getting requested fast.
Apparently this image is forward as well. So, well, let's do it on the fly then. Sorry folks, this was all really, really well planned, I promise you.
No, it wasn't.
You have no right to speak, my friend. Don't believe how bad they do. One impression I got in Vegas when my demo worked there as well is that VMware Workstation really does not like working on low resolution. I don't know if anybody else has this, but in Vegas everything slowed right down, and here everything is basically dying. I'm sorry, I have no idea what happened to all my containers. They're gone. What I can do in the background while we're talking is maybe dance. What? So this one at least works. Oh, look at this one running. Okay, well, at least this doesn't even die straight away, so we can go back to this later when the containers are being recreated again.
On football.
We're here again? Really? Okay, so anyway, I'm sorry, getting back to something that actually does work. PowerPoint, it's a miracle. But why is Microsoft so interested in this? Well, when I was checking out all the information on containers, I came across some interesting videos. And one thing I thought was really interesting is the general strategy for 2016. I was really bugged when I installed 2016 in the first place that you have the Microsoft App Store thing or Appix stuff in there. Why do we need this? It's ridiculous, it's a server operating system. Well, not really. For Microsoft, this is just a step for using RDS and maybe some graphical administration tools, but that's it. This is not, it is a full-blown server, of course, but Microsoft does not intend it to be used in the way we intend to use servers these days. This is going to be mostly for RDS and visual stuff that you want to run on the server. That's it. So yes, the store in there, that's functionality many regular users would expect. What they want you to do is take all your software and start running it on server core. Smaller footprint, less attack surface, less use of resources. This is your current stuff. Anything you can't get to run yet on what they would really like, Nano. Their strategy is that everything is going to be programmed towards running on Nano servers and actually inside containers. Yes?
Didn't they say the same thing about Windows Core?
There's a good chance they did. I didn't watch that video. But I believe you completely Windows Core, yeah. But Windows Core is still really bloated. I mean, I get graphical stuff inside Windows Core when I need graphical stuff for if I'm running a DNS service. So I think it's all about the nice buzzword microservices. So we've always been separating our DNS, our file, etc. onto entire operating systems. Even server core, that's kind of large if you're spreading out all these small functions that actually don't need that much. By using containers, not only can you configure and deploy them faster, the footprint you're using is tiny compared even to server core. You'll have to do more work to get things running on Nano, which is why we're hoping that the developers will just give us their images and we can deploy things just like that. Here's the idea. Let me see in the background, by the way, what's happening here. Are we having any luck? Not really, I need to talk a bit more. But yeah, they really would like application developers to start delivering stuff inside containers, compartmentalized. No more BS about you cannot run certain services next to each other. It's dangerous to run IS on the same machine as AD, DNS, or whatever. It shouldn't matter anymore. It should all be dynamic and be able to move to another machine really easily, which is, by the way, where the whole Docker management layer comes in, and I'm not talking about too much. We're going to get that a bit. Some things to think about, and I'm way out of time, I think. Billable hours will go down. You're not going to spend that much time anymore on tweaking components which are not your core job. A large part of the work I do is user environment tuning, so I'm actually quite good there because this will always be customized for many people. But many of the things we do, testing unintended install scripts in different environments, getting everything to work together just right, there's going to be less work there. But you can concentrate on the more fun stuff, because for the 20th time you do a storefront, you're kind of bored with it. Containers you can run just by themselves. You don't need Docker. You can download TP5 now and start playing around with it. Once you start using stuff like Docker, it gets really cool. With Docker and all the management layers in there, the networking technology in there, the clustering technology in there, Docker's going to take a lot of standard management on the infrastructure layer out of your hands. With Docker, you will say at some point, I really like the Docker compose command. So you have Docker build, which is basically the same as I was doing with create a new container. The Docker build, you point it towards an image, it will spin up a container from that image. If you use Docker compose, you can actually say, okay, so I need a web server, I need a DB. Here's my web server image, here's my DB image. It will open up the ports and need to talk with each other automatically. So now this is fine, it's working well. At some point, like, okay, so this is actually a web shop image for Christmas decorations. I get no Christmas customers all year. Christmas is coming around. I need 1,000 web servers and 10 DBs to handle it. You do Docker compose, and you, if I remember the syntax correctly, scale web 1,000, scale DB 10, and that's it. 1,000 containers automatically spread among the servers in the best way for how do you say? Resource utilization. So if some servers are heavily loaded, it will automatically balance all this stuff. And in a few minutes you have a giant environment running. And it's all similar. If something happens to one server, Docker can move the container to the other server, just like we do now with virtual machines. That's where the real fun starts. And that's where we're going to come in again, because we are going to be needing to set this up. So there's definitely a learning curve. I've spent quite a bit of time, I've scratched the surface. By the way, if anybody really wants to know about Docker and the Linux world, so how it's been so far in the Linux environments, talk to Sasha in the next room when he's done. He's done great research on that. But we're going to have to do the same in the Windows environment as well. We are going to need to learn this and work with this. Because I think our roles will really change. And this is an interesting one I thought I'd throw in there. An SQL container. We've all been a customer. You have your separate database guys department. Fair enough. It's a specialized skill, especially when you're working with large amounts of data. But at some point, if you're going to be deploying something like Citrix, and you need a database, what is the role of the database administrator going to be? It's a very different animal. We're talking about often a stateless SQL server, where you just have a few logins in there. The files will be on a shared file, which you will back up, which maybe the DB admin can back up. But the responsibilities there are going to change a lot. Of course, the huge data systems, definitely let the SQL guys handle and optimize that. That's their thing. But my little database, comparatively for XNAP, there's going to be, I don't know if power struggle sounds so negative, but there could be something going to, some dynamics are going to change inside companies. Also with networking appliances, which are going to come in containers. Responsibilities will be shifting around a bit. And if you have something which does have a traditional role like an SQL server, but it's part of an application you're deploying fully automatically and configured and the way the developer intended it, should your DBA really then start saying, okay, and now I need to optimize this according to our corporate rules? I don't know. We'll see how that turns out, but I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. We'll have a quick look here. Actually done anywhere? Oh, hell no, this thing's died and gone to heaven. Yeah. No, it's not what I told you. Excuse me. So my script's been running to try and recreate all those IIS containers which mysteriously disappeared. Let's have a look. If we actually have anything up now. Doesn't really look like it. Okay, well this demo that didn't work was actually going to show you that inside my 4 gig virtual machine, I have got 35 IIS servers running, 35 separate IIS websites running in their own user mode and using less than my 4 gigs of physical memory in there, or in this case virtual memory. So the footprint compared to a full Core OS is tiny. I think Nano installs a few other meg, even Nano. Oh, look. I'm amazed. We have okay, so these took like 5 minutes to create in the background. I have 35 on here. Again, one SSD, not state of the art. I could spin those 35 machines up in 2 minutes, 12 seconds when everything was working properly. 35 entire servers, less than 4 gigs use of memory. Core OS itself, I think, takes 700 megs. You can say about 100 megabyte per full IIS server, which I think is pretty neat, especially considering if you're just restarting one, you can actually restart it in 3-4 seconds. And maybe by the time I pack up for Amsterdam, I'll have created the rest of my containers. We'll have to see about that one. last little thought. I was really hoping when I first heard about container thing, and I didn't know what the heck it actually was, that it was going to be graphical. And I thought, you know, this is cool. We can get something like VDI running, but not with the full-blown VDI load that it creates. Unfortunately, I was very wrong. You're not going to run anything graphical inside the container right now. In fact, any installs you make inside the container, you will have to use a command line installer that has no graphics display, because it doesn't do that, just to PowerShell remotely. However, it would be nice, and there are many people at the conference these last few days who work with all kinds of virtualization and layering technology. Maybe you can hack something from me, because it would be really cool to have separate VDI machines, but as containers. It's, again, a lot less footprint. Would be cool. Anybody want to take the hint and go with that one? Please do. So I have some links here which probably no one can read on this, but the slide deck will be distributed, of course. Microsoft has a really great guide to get you started with all this. There's actually a container video channel as well with a lot of information on there. And Microsoft is on GitHub. The new PowerShell commands for Docker are actually being created in GitHub as an open source project, which shows some of the ways Microsoft is changing as well, by the way. There's some cool stuff they're doing out there. If you want to play with this, there's a nice script you can get from the first link. It will set up your entire machine for you and download the images, etc. It works most of the time. Sometimes something goes wrong and it just craps out. But what's really annoying is every time it will download the base images again. So if you're specifying a standard, you want a standard installed standard image, that's a 2 gig image, which should take 1 or 2 minutes and will often take up to half an hour. And then you actually get an error message. It does work, but I don't know what the error message is supposed to mean. So what I recommend is, with these 2 links, you can actually download the images yourself. Then you run the script with a command that says there, skip image import. It will set up the entire roll. It's really fast, takes 1 or 2 minutes. And then you import the image. And just in case everything's gone wrong, you've got the image there already. You don't have to, every time you set up a new server to run containers, do all this again. Yeah, it just saved me a lot of time when I started using that trick, because the installation failed a lot. So look those up when you get the slide deck. And I'm really sorry about everything crapping out. I tried, honestly. But I am done, because this is never going to work.